you're heading to Sars office this week to sort out a tax problem, you might not have much luck. Sars employees, who are part of unions Nehawu and the Public Servants Association, have embarked on a strike. They want a total increase in the region of about 12%, but the tax authority says it just can't do it. I'm joined now by Sars Commissioner Edward Kieswetter. Good evening, and thank you very much for your time. So how much disruption has been caused by the strike in the past 2 days?
Hi, thank you, Sally. Minimal disruption, but let me first acknowledge that any disruption, any adverse impact on service is always regrettable, regardless of the reason for that. And before I say anything, I must apologize to taxpayers who have, for example, in our contact centers experienced the impact of high call volumes simply because it's filing season, but then exacerbated by a lower than normal number of agents who are able to serve them. We've had high call volumes, 30,000 on average calls a day, and most of those calls are desperate taxpayers who just want to find out where is my refund. And so one must acknowledge that it's a reflection of the hardship that people face. We've also, in our branches, have had to close, just as a measure of safety and precaution, we've closed about 45% of our branches where we really didn't believe we could service walk-ins. We do take appointments, and those are scheduled, and taxpayers would be informed directly of that. We also have virtual appointments, so even if our doors are closed to walk in from the street, there are still our own employees who are servicing taxpayers through our other channels. So the disruption is minimal, but still regrettable.
Did you say 45% of your branches are affected?
We closed. So what happens is SARS has introduced an appointment system, and we did that to minimize the indignity of long queues and people waiting there, and to manage just the mismatch often between the number of taxpayers that need our assistance and our own staff. So we introduced an appointment system and it works much better. But some taxpayers, notwithstanding, still come to our offices, and we never turn a taxpayer away. But it does mean that our queues are then become unmanageable. This year, because of the level of automation, thankfully, the branch visits were significantly lower than in former years. But even then, now exacerbated by about a third of our service consultants not being present, we've had to focus on appointments only and on virtual appointments. And for that reason, we closed our branches to not have long queues outside when there's also the possibility of staff who are using the outside areas to demonstrate. And we didn't want to put taxpayers at risk.
I understand. Very quickly, advice to people who've made an appointment. I presume that might mean going into a branch. Does that mean that appointment is cancelled, or does it go online at this point?
At this stage, we would encourage all taxpayers, as far as possible, to use our digital platform. Sally, it is possible for an ordinary taxpayer to fulfill almost every single one of the obligations without coming anywhere near a call center. And I can tell you that we've had, just in this filing season, we've had already 700,000 taxpayers who have filed their returns purely on our digital platforms. And we've had a further 2.5 million taxpayers who benefited from auto assessment, which meant that there was no need for them to do any intervention. And so a significant portion of our work actually is already taking place online and seamlessly.
And that success story, because really it has been a success story, since things have started to change, Eskom, SARS has regained some of its former glory. I wish Eskom could. But a lot of work has been done. You gathered more taxes than you'd anticipated. We know that generally the system is much more efficient. So can you not use that as an argument when you go to Treasury? And I know you said your hands are tied, but can you not use that as an argument and go to Treasury and say, my hard-working people deserve more than the 1.5% that I can currently afford?
I think my Treasury colleagues are already sick and tired of me, because I remind them every time about the fact that SARS is underfunded. Sally, you would know that on public record to say that we are still significantly underfunded over the next 3 years. Our underfunding is more than 16 billion rand. And so we do have that. The level of funding reflects just government's overall funding constraints. And also, therefore, one has to think about the affordability of union demands before you even get to whether or not those demands are reasonable. So we go to Treasury, our minister is aware of it, but then we wait. Now, the real disappointment that I have to express is that everything I've told you now, one, the fact that SARS does not determine its own funding, two, that I was completely transparent with the level of funding I have available for staff increases. I have shared that. I've probably overshared transparently with our with our union leaders. And I've also said to them, there's no point in us re-engaging on that matter. I'm happy to re-engage on other benefits and other ways that we can make life better for our staff. But until I get an additional allocation from National Treasury through the process of allocation, I am not able. So it's not as if I'm holding stuff in my back pocket and trying to outsmart them.
No. I don't think anyone is thinking that. It sounds like you might have asked for a little more. And I'm wondering, for example, if we look at what happened with Eskom.
A lot more.
A lot more, okay. We know that we saw what happened at Eskom. Eventually, even though Eskom employees are not meant to go on strike, they've gone out on a wildcat strike, they got 7%. Now, surely when push comes to shove and you're threatening the efficiency of the tax authority by being on strike for a long time, government seems to change its tune. And that's the thing, is that I think that we look at what happened with Eskom, and I would imagine that your employees are going, well, look, it happened for Eskom, why can't it happen for us? Is that a problem?
Of course, any display of excess elsewhere in the country and in government and in state-owned enterprises just puts a lot more heat under a pot that is already pressurized and boiling. So yes, the Eskom settlement doesn't make things easier for us. The difference between Andre de Ruyter and Edward Kieswetter is Andre de Ruyter is not only a chief executive, he is a chief executive that is fully empowered to allocate, to decide on his own budget. Now, whether or not they can afford it is quite another matter, but they will have to answer for that. But yes, it does make it difficult for us. Even though the commissioner is the chief executive of SARS, he or she does not determine their own funding.
Very quickly, I presume talks continue. Am I right?
We are always ready to talk. I have just been very clear. I cannot talk about the wage increase proposal. I can talk about anything else. And there are many important reasons why we should talk, because we are very clear that we want to improve the overall value proposition. Sally, if I may just, for 1 minute, because good news is always welcome. Last year, in the same period of filing season, we managed 460,000 instances of refunding to the value of 4.9 billion. In the same period this year, because of automation, because of us trying to improve our engagement with taxpayers, we have already dealt with 1.1 million instances of refund to the value of 7.1 billion rand. That means 7.1 billion has found its way into the pockets of taxpayers at a time when every cent matters.
Indeed, it does. And let's hope Treasury is listening to you this evening. And good luck. I really hope you...
We'll send them the clip.
Let's do that. Let's do that. Thank you so much for chatting to us. SARS Commissioner Edward Kieswetter explaining the impact of the strike and the difficulties in trying to meet those demands around salary increases. Still